Have you ever heard of a samurai who killed over 130 people, shook Edo with terror, and is still remembered today? This is the story of a young samurai who lived fast and his tragic love. He was a retainer of the Tottori domain in Inaba province, far from Edo, a legitimate samurai. He lived with his father and mother and was raised in a harmonious household. In the autumn of 1672, at the age of 18, a man named Honjo Sukadayu, his father's respected colleague, insulted his father. Enraged, Gonpachi killed Sukadayu and fled to Edo. Before long, Gonpachi arrived at Yoshiwara, the largest pleasure district in Japan at the time, then known as Shin Yoshiwara. There, he encountered a dazzling world unlike anything he had ever seen in Tottori, and he soon found himself captivated by the town. Where there is great light, there is deep shadow. This has always been true across all times and places. Yoshiwara was a center of trends, aesthetics, and performing arts. The courtesans were highly educated, mastering poetry, music, and calligraphy, and they often interacted with cultural elites. With many merchants and craftsmen involved, it also functioned as a major industry supporting Edo's economy. Yet behind this brilliance lay a darker reality. Many women were sold from impoverished families and bound by long-term contracts that severely restricted their freedom, forcing them into harsh working conditions. Long hours of entertaining clients and the spread of sexually transmitted diseases took a serious toll on their health, and many died young. Attempts to escape were harshly punished, effectively leaving them in a state of confinement. As they aged and lost customers or succumbed to illness, these women, often without family or support, were discarded. Their bodies were sometimes thrown into nearby temples as if cast away. Such temples came to be known as Nagakomi-dera, throw-in temples. This is a memorial tower. Even today, the former site of Yoshiwara remains an area offering specialized services, and since the Edo period, the remains of those who died there without anyone to claim them have been memorialized at this temple. Under the eaves of the memorial monument, items believed to belong to women currently working at the former site of Yoshiwara, such as lipstick and hairpins, have been placed. In this way, Yoshiwara was a place where light and darkness coexisted as two sides of the same coin. It would be a little later before Gonpachi came to realize the darkness of this town. After learning that Gonpachi was hiding near Yoshiwara, the two sons of Sukadayu set out for Edo to avenge their father. They rented a house in Minowa, a town neighboring Yoshiwara, and began searching for him. Their objective was singular: to kill Gonpachi by making use of the vendetta system. Vendetta, adauchi, was a form of revenge officially recognized during the Edo period. It referred to the act of avenging the death of one's lord or parent by killing the perpetrator. However, the Tokugawa shogunate did not permit such acts without restriction. In practice, the right to carry out vendettas was largely limited to the samurai class. Thus, while it was a personal act of revenge, it functioned as a conditionally legal system under state control. Upon learning that he was being pursued by Sukadayu's sons, Gonpachi ambushed and beheaded the elder brother at night in a deserted rice field near Yoshiwara. A few days later, he also killed the younger brother, who had been washing his brother's severed head in a well. Gonpachi lay in wait and struck him down on the spot. This is the very well where the incident took place. Afterward, Gonpachi became intimately involved with Komurasaki, a courtesan of the Miuraya in Yoshiwara. The two gradually fell in love, their relationship deepening beyond that of a mere courtesan and her client. However, entering Yoshiwara surrounded on all sides by high walls, required enormous sums of money. Although Gonpachi was a skilled samurai, he was only a low-ranking retainer and could not afford to frequent the pleasure quarters repeatedly. It was then that he realized Komurasaki could not leave the district, and came to understand the harsh reality of her circumstances. To continue seeing her, Gonpachi resorted to tsujigiri, robbery and murder. Gonpachi's crimes were carried out across Edo, in places such as Nihonzutsumi, Kanasugi, and Ushigome. It is said that, driven solely by his desire to see Komurasaki, he murdered more than 130 people and robbed them of their money and valuables. This large Jizo statue is also said to have been one of the crime scenes. Gonpachi would hide behind it, then cut down passers-by and steal their possessions. Before long, all of Edo was abuzz with stories of this street slasher. Of course, Komurasaki, who was unable to leave the Yoshiwara district, had no way of knowing any of this. Eventually, rumors about Gonpachi spread throughout Edo, and wanted notices with his likeness began to circulate. Finally driven into a corner, Gonpachi was sheltered at Toshoji Temple of the Fuke sect, now abandoned, said to have been located near Meguro Fudo Ryusenji. There he mastered the shakuhachi and became a Komuso monk. During the Edo period, Komuso were monks belonging to the Fuke sect, a branch of Zen Buddhism. They were known for their distinctive appearance, wearing deep wicker baskets over their heads and playing the shakuhachi flute while begging for alms. They were said to practice a form of Zen through sound, using the flute instead of chanting sutras as their spiritual discipline. Many of those who became Komuso were originally from the samurai class, especially Ronin, masterless samurai. For such men, becoming a Komuso offered a way to maintain their status while making a living. However, in reality, people of uncertain background and even vagrants sometimes slipped into their ranks, meaning they were not always purely religious practitioners. They were granted several privileges. Most notably, they were allowed freedom of travel across the country. While ordinary people in the Edo period faced strict restrictions at checkpoints, Komuso were exceptionally permitted wide mobility. They were also allowed to conceal their faces with their basket hats, which was highly unusual in a rigidly stratified society. The Tokugawa shogunate is believed to have tolerated these privileges for reasons of maintaining public order and gathering intelligence. Because Komuso could travel widely and hide their identities, they were sometimes used to monitor conditions across different regions, essentially functioning as a semi-official information network. Additionally, the system may have served to absorb and control potentially unstable ronin. In short, Komuso were a uniquely Edo period phenomenon, religious figures who also fulfilled social and political roles. Gonpachi made full use of this system, disguising himself as a Komuso to visit his hometown of Tottori, only to learn that his parents had already passed away. In deep despair, lacking even the will to dress himself in the garments of a Komuso, he set out for Edo once more, driven by a single desire, to see Komurasaki again. With heavy steps, he eventually reached Rokugo, just before Edo. Once you cross the Tama River, you are in Edo. On the Edo-side riverbank, as seen from the boat, a large number of kumosuke lay in wait. Kumosuke were laborers active from the Edo period through the Meiji era, mainly along highways and post towns. They carried travelers' luggage, bore palanquins, and worked as ferrymen operating crossing boats. Socially, they were close to the lowest class, and many had no steady employment. A large number were also involved in gambling. Disputes were common. They would often demand outrageous fees after providing their services. In many ways, they were similar to what we might call street gangs today. These local ruffians, hoping to capture the wanted man Gonpachi and make a name for themselves, launched a mass attack. However, Gonpachi, a highly skilled samurai, cut them down one after another and continued on toward Yoshiwara. When he reached Suzugamori, even more fierce men attacked him, but he fought them all off. At last, completely exhausted, Gonpachi surrendered himself. On December 5th, 1679, Gonpachi was paraded through the busy streets of Edo, crossing a bridge while being showered with insults from the townspeople. Just beyond this bridge lay the Suzugamori execution grounds. Because condemned prisoners would cross this bridge in tiers, people eventually came to call it Namidabashi, Tear Bridge. Although it has since been rebuilt, this is the very location where it once stood. Normally, samurai were granted the honorable death of seppuku, but due to the severity of his crimes, Gonpachi was executed by crucifixion, one of the harshest forms of punishment and highly unusual for a samurai. Crucifixion during the Edo period involved piercing the body dozens of times with spears. This punishment was carried out by people who existed outside even the lowest ranks of the social hierarchy, those considered heavily defiled and treated as less than human. For a samurai, who stood at the very top of that hierarchy, to be executed by such people was itself considered an additional layer of punishment. He was 25 years old. Gonpachi's body was left exposed for 3 days and 2 nights. This is the site where the execution took place. At this site, the well where severed heads were washed, as well as the bases of the pillars used for burning at the stake and crucifixion, still remain to this day. By the way, does this large stone monument look familiar? That's right. Ironically, Gonpachi was executed in the very place where, just before turning himself in, he had cut down many ruffians. It was the same execution ground where he would meet his end. The coastline in this area has since been reclaimed, and the atmosphere is quite different from what it was in those days. However, a large stone monument known as the Daimokuto, built to pray for the souls of the executed, bears the most important passage of the sutra and still exudes an overwhelming presence today. Later, Komurasaki received news of Gonpachi's execution. Not long after, she is said to have escaped from Yoshiwara and taken her own life before Gonpachi's grave at Toshoji Temple. This grave, known as the Hyokuzuka, still remains today. It was built with the hope that Gonpachi and Komurasaki would never again be torn apart and could live together in peace and happiness in the afterlife.
Japan Bee is a channel that randomly shares information about lesser-known aspects of Japanese culture, spanning across various genres.
We also sell a Tokyo guidebook with themes you won't find anywhere else. If you are interested, please take a look at the description.